Good day, everyone, or buenos dias, if you prefer, because today we've got a special guest. This is Andoni Orive from Spain, from Pamplona. And Andoni is the designer of the new upcoming game, New Cold War, one of the most expected games for 2025 by VUCA Simulations. And for the fans of Twilight Struggle especially, this might be a very interesting surprise because it bears some kind of similarities with Twilight Struggle. We've got again a Cold War, but this time this is New Cold War from 1989 to 2019, just before the outbreak of COVID-19. So we are pretty sure you are gonna love it. The game is about to be released in 2025, and this is for 4 players. So you can imagine this a bit like 4D Twilight Struggle. And Andoni, welcome on board. A few words,
Hello,
please.
Warriors. First of all, many thanks for inviting us to be here to talk about our game. The other designer, Igor, can be there with me today, but okay. The game is designed by Igor and Andoni. Happy to be here to explain you or to reply your questions.
Sure. Yes, we have also invited Igor, who for personal reasons couldn't be with us, but maybe he can join us sometime in the future. We would be really happy to meet Igor Plaza as well. So, first of all, first things first, where are we? I think we are at the pre-order stage right now. People can pre-order the game.
Yes, I think around 2 weeks ago, VUCA launched the pre-order in the web. So we can expect the game, I think, around April, May next year. Well, sorry, this year.
This year, yeah.
And the pre-order will be open, I think, until the games arrives to the warehouses. So I think pre-order is open at least for 3 months more, or with this discount for the pre-order. Okay.
Okay. So for all our viewers, for people interested, you can pre-order New Cold War from the site of VUCA Simulations, and we are going to post a link in the descriptions, of course, where you can find it. The official game's launch or release for physical copies will probably be around April or May, and until then you can pre-order. So I would like to ask you, Andoni, is this your first design, or have you designed something else in the past before New Cold War, possibly with Igor or alone?
No, this is our first design. Yeah. We are very new in this business, okay, in this world. We are only occasional lovers of board games, not war games, okay, because this is something new too for us, because we are started to play like Euro games, because Igor is not one of my friends of all my life. We know each other from the school, but he has 1 year less than me. So we joined together playing these Euro games. And after that, I saw to him Twilight Struggle. So we love to play together, not too much, okay? But after that, this was the seed to create New Cold War.
I see, and in my opinion, that's pretty impressive, because if this is your first design, I would not expect something so spectacular. I mean, I'm kind of a heavy war gamer myself. I mean, I have played, of course, all kinds of and genres of games like Euro games or non-Euro games or so, and I have a pretty significant experience in war games, including Twilight Struggle, of course, and similar games, more political games or war games. This seems even more impressive to me, that this is your first design, and such an interesting one at that. I mean, I'm pretty positive this will compete with the actual Twilight Struggle over the next years in terms of popularity and possibly even tournaments being held in a new Cold War. So besides that, I would like to ask you, how did the idea occur to you? Okay, I mean, you have tried the Twilight Struggle, and then how did you end up with the idea of designing a new game, and particularly about the new Cold War era?
Okay, I think it was after playing with Igor sometimes. We always made us the question of if there is any other game continuing Twilight Struggle with the new events after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And we look for games, and we didn't find nothing. So we start to thinking, but not in this way of release a game, only like something homemade. We need to make a sequel of Twilight Struggle. Mm-hmm. This was the first idea, but we started to make like a copy of Twilight Struggle with the same rules, but with the different events from 1999 to 2019. So really we did two games. We did a first game, like a copy of Twilight Struggle. And after that, we think that this is not possible. We can do that. This is a copy of a game. So we start to make our own game.
I see. And I mean, that's not too bad. I mean, this was a nice first step. Like, what kind of game are we trying to create? And what do we want its thematic to be? And then after doing this first implementation, even if this was a real copy of Twilight Struggle, then you can start adding things or removing things or adjusting things so that you reach the final result that you have thought of. So I would like to ask you about the inspirations from other games. I mean, the obvious one is Twilight Struggle, of course, but maybe have there been any other games that influenced your design besides Twilight Struggle?
Really no, because like I have told you, we play like Euro games, classic Euro games, and it was I think after that when we start to go to several conventions physical in Spain, like Bellota, Con, or Batalladores, Basel Forever. I think the three more important conventions in Spain, when we start to know like war games more related with our game, more with political or okay. So we start to see in these games different mechanisms that we have already implemented in our game.
Yes,
and we don't know about this. So we make, for example, in New Cold War, we have the reserve point.
Exactly, yeah? Exactly.
So after that, we play, I think, in this November in Batalladores to Labyrinth. Exactly. And in Labyrinth, they have this but we don't know about this, okay? So
yeah, I mean, this impressed me because I had played Labyrinth, which is the War on Terror. And for our viewers, Labyrinth is a two-player game in which one player plays the USA and the other player plays the jihadists conducting terrorist attacks on USA and Europe, for example. And this mechanism of reserve, I mean, placing some operation points on reserve to later combine it for a stronger action next turn, is a mechanism that I found on New Cold War, and I was definitely sure that these guys should have played Labyrinth, and that's why they implemented this mechanism, which is a really smart mechanism, if you ask me. And yeah, it's surprising that you implemented this mechanism without even knowing it exists in Labyrinth.
Yeah, honestly, we have implemented, I think, everything only with the inspiration of Twilight Struggle, because we don't know other games. I think some years after I bought Imperial Struggle, but because I want to know what Jason and Ananda has done after Twilight Struggle, and I always ask myself why they didn't do a new Twilight, a new sequel. And in the last con online that we participate together with Georgios and in Mesa de Guerra Online, Jason make a talk, and I did this question to Jason, why they didn't do a sequel, but he replied me that in the early 2000 they don't think it's logical this game for him. So okay.
Yeah, I think Jason and Ananda did not think of it, but this was a great opportunity for you to fill in the gap, and I'm pretty happy a game is finally being launched about the new Cold War. And honestly, I mean, there is a possibility of sequels in this game. An obvious example is Labyrinth. It started as Labyrinth, the War on Terror, and now it's becoming Labyrinth, the Forever War with the new expansions. And we don't even know what dates it will cover. It has a question mark on its title, like 2000 until we don't know when is the title. So maybe this is a chance for you with new Cold War for a sequel to the future.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. This is the reason why we are interested in know Labyrinth and how they implement the expansions. Okay, because after 2019, the events that we are living in all the world we have a lot of very important events to implement, and we are starting to work in an expansion of new Cold War with these new events, okay? Because there are a lot of opportunities here.
Yeah, this was a question I was going to ask you further in our conversation, but this is a nice chance to talk about it, like a possible expansions on new Cold War. If you ask me, I would recommend you wait a few more years, because much stuff might have changed around the world by that time you work on the expansion. And I would also like to ask you, how do you feel about modern wars or modern events being covered in games? This is quite a controversial topic. For example, our beloved Mark Herman has been working on Defiance, Miracle on the Dnipro, which covers the second Russo-Ukrainian war, the one that this is ongoing still. And I would like to ask your opinion. How do you feel about such ongoing or recent events being covered in war games?
Okay, it's not an easy question. Okay, in our case, I think it's not so hard because our game is more focused in a struggle of influence in the world. So it's not like a war conflicts or. So I think is an approach more soft to these types. But yeah, we have some events that are controversial, but okay. In our case, we think we try to treat all the events with some respect and trying to be there very adjust to the historical context. So I can reply you well to this question.
Your response is pretty much sufficient. I mean, of course, it is a hard task to try to handle such recent events. And for our viewers and possible gamers interested, this will be an amazingly interesting game with recent events. We've got Putin, we've got Erdogan, we've got Hezbollah, we've got everything a political enthusiast would love in a political game. And of course, your treatment of all these events is very soft and sensitive. I can be sure about that. Next question would be about your sources of knowledge. How do you become so knowledgeable with the history of Cold War or new Cold War, if you prefer? What are the sources you have been studying before doing this design?
Okay, in my case, I have studied not when I was younger. So 10 years ago, I have studied the history degree. Okay, I love this theme. Okay, so finally, with this we have the facility, for example, to find the events for the Western Bloc. You know, from information from Europe, from United States. From Russia, I think too, and the more difficult was to investigate about the China's event. But yeah, we go to the libraries to look for specialized books or geopolitical atlas, something like Le Monde Diplomatique is in France about geopolitics. These books with the, I don't know the name in English, with the all years and all the more important events per year. We have to do like a investigation. We select a lot of events, and after that we start to get in the more important, discard ones, implement others. So, but I think this was for me the best part of designing the game is to select the events, and after that to implement in the game, adjust, change things, prove how the events impact the game.
Sure. I mean, I would like to particularly focus on what you said about how hard it is to look for Chinese sources, because there are many game designers in Europe or USA who are pretty knowledgeable or have studied these topics of politics or recent global politics, like our beloved Jason Matthews himself, of course. And then you can't really delve into Chinese sources unless you are a Chinese fluent speaker. This is no wonder that so few games have been designed about China in comparison to many games about World War or the American Civil War or American Revolution, for example, which is more accessible to Western game designers. That's for sure. And the next question,
Sorry, related with this, in these conventions in Spain, we knew some people that work in this. So there are experts in geopolitics. So we can send to these people the file with all the events, and they made us some corrections to improve the historical approach to these events. So we have this help to improve a little bit this aspect.
Yeah, of course, this is vital. And even in these kind of abstract political games where you don't need to be particularly precise, like you've got an event, for example, Putin and Russia against one prestige, that's no big deal. But even so, you need to be historically accurate to some extent. I can agree to that. Now, next question would be about your main challenges in designing New Cold War. Which were the hardest issues you faced in design? Things that made you wonder, how do we solve this? How do we change this? How will this be playable? For example, if you can share with us.
I think one of the most difficult was to balance the game, okay? Because it was complicated to get this balance to all players can win the game in the same or in a media times of winning. But finally, okay, we have decided, because the game is in the first decade, Soviet Union has collapsed, so the US power is very powerful, and you need to be like an alliance of 2 or 3 other players to fight against the US, because if not, the victory of US can be more sure than the others. So finally, we have decided to place a rule that is the US preponderancy. That is not a rule; it's a mention in the rule book that if no one fight against US, they will have more possibility than other powers to win. But I think we are very okay with this, because I think it's a reflect of the geopolitics of these 30 years. Maybe not in the last times of 2010 ahead, but US has dominated geopolitics in the 90s, in the 2000s. So I think this can handle with our game. So this one of the things that was complicated. Another one that I think we have, because in the game we are like we have been 6 years designing this game. We start very slow, and after that, during the COVID, we can make some advance. And I think we have a time of almost a year that we have abandoned, or quite the game was stopped because we have problems with the map. But finally, one friend of us here in Pamplona helped us and design the idea of the map that continue today, with the center of the map for the place of the cards and the regions all around this. So this idea, after that, I think that all goes faster and we can advance to this final design.
I see. And yeah, I have tried the tabletop simulator version of the game. So the map, I can assure our viewers, is wonderful and very convenient for players. And I'm pretty sure VUCA Simulations will do a wonderful job with the map and the overall production. It is a company I highly appreciate, with very high standards on production quality. And as for the other thing you said, I would like to clarify that for our viewers, that the game is played in 3 decades. It is split in the 3 decades, of 1989 onwards, then 1999 onwards, and then 2009 onwards. So yeah, of course, during the first decade, America is strong. The USA have just won the Cold War, and they are dominant around the map. And that's why there has been a design note within the rulebook that players have to slightly cooperate with each other against America early on, so that they don't win every single game. It's not exactly a rule, rather a design note, which makes perfect sense. But I oftentimes like to make a joke that multiplayer war games do not necessarily have to be perfectly balanced, because there are more than 2 players, and many players can bash on the player in the lead. So if one player is winning, we can just fix that by having all the rest of the players teaming up against him. So this is some kind of balance in multiplayer games.
This is one thing that another Twilight Struggle championship from Spain, Jarib Flores, he helped us with some tests, and he always says that the other players can balance the game.
Because, yeah, exactly.
As you say, it's a game of 4. The game is 1 to 4. Maybe we talk after about this, but sure. When you play 4, that is I think the best experience for sure. These other players can balance the game.
Yeah, okay. So clarifying for our viewers again, there are up to 4 players in this game. You can play it solitaire, or 2 players or 3 players with the addition of bots to fill in the gaps. But ideally, you've got 4 players. One is USA, the other one is European Union, the other one is Russia, rather than the Soviet Union. Now it is Russia. And the other player is China. It's with their own powers, strengths, and problems or weaknesses. So let's now dive a bit onto the game itself and some observations I have made. After so much experience in Twilight Struggle, I can't help but to make some comparisons and draw some conclusions or opinions on that. And one thing that is really different from Twilight Struggle is the flexibility in action selection. I mean, in Twilight Struggle, you choose one action for every one of your rounds. You either choose to place influence or do a coup, which is a coup d'etat, for example, to change the balance of power in one country, or play into space, for example. But in a New Cold War, you can combine actions. And I'm not sure how I feel about this, because a big part of playing Twilight Struggle at a competitive level, just like Harib, for example, is trying to strangle your opponent by restricting his action selection or take advantage of the restrictions in the action selection procedure. For example, if I am playing against Harib, for example, I will try to place him in a position where he has to choose either place influence or conduct a coup or do something else, but he cannot do everything together. And whatever he chooses, I will react accordingly, or will have planned my next action accordingly. So my style is what I call Twilight Strangle, how to strangle your opponents by taking advantage of the restrictions in action selection. I have not found this thing in New Cold War. You can kind of combine your operations. For example, if you play a card of a 3 operations value, you can place one influence, or you can do a coup and then place some spare influence here and there. And so how do you feel about this difference in the action selection procedure? How do you think this will impact the game in comparison to Twilight Struggle?
No, I think in our case, we are not very good players of Twilight Struggle, and so this we don't make this analysis because we have played together, I don't know, maybe 10 times, not more. So we haven't analyzed precisely Twilight Struggle, but we consider that maybe our game in this new period of the history, we think that we need to be more open to provide the players this flexibility of combine. And we have another important difference with Twilight Struggle. We don't have the adjacency rules here, because we consider that in a globalized world, this has not logical to restrict the movements in this globalized world.
Yeah.
So for this case, we consider that the combination of different actions will be a good option. Really, we didn't think about this because since the beginning, the combination for us was clear. So that we need to place this rule that you can combine the actions.
Sure. I mean, thematically, it does not necessarily make much sense to restrict the players. This is a global world, global politics. So you can play some influence here, some influence there. No need for some adjacency, like moving troops from one country to the adjacent one. I can agree to that. The restrictions are, I think, more for gaming purposes, like playing some kind of mind games. You can do this option A or option B, but whatever you do, I can react accordingly. You can't combine option A with option B, for example. Still, there are some smart mechanisms in New Cold War, that's for sure. I have tried some games, and for example, one smart mechanism is this coup d'etat, the coup itself in New Cold War. I think this is particularly useful on conducting coups on enemy orbit countries. I think this is the key, because practically coup means turning a country from favoring an opponent of yours or the opponent bloc to favoring your own block. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that the most value is conducting the coup at a country that is orbited by your opponent, because then you gain a little bit of value when flipping the influence, I think, plus the extra rewards of prestige, for example.
In this case, we try to make the coup mechanism interest for player by giving a little reward, because this interaction is good for the game. It's a game of 4 players, so we need this, okay? These different fights between the players. But on the other side, we have limited the coup d'etat number per turn with a negative impact in the media communication track, okay? So I think this is very logical with the geopolitical world, that if you are very aggressive, you have some bad consequences in the media. So we think that we are comfortable with this mechanism, rewards but limited by the media impact.
Yes, and to clarify again for our viewers, there is some track of means of communication in the new Cold War. So whichever country or bloc impacts the means of communication better, be it the red bloc or the blue bloc, has enjoys some benefits. And the more you coup, sometimes the more you lose on the impact on the means of communication, which is smart and makes a lot of sense. And another observation is that there are no dice in New Cold War. So for people intimidated by the dice rolling of Twilight Struggle, this might be your chance to shine, because there are no dice rolls in New Cold War. You can just place your influence or conduct your coups, and all the data is there. You know what will happen. No unexpected results due to dice rolls. And I would like to add that I'm a bit surprised that the game does not really reward the early victory point lead. It is a game that is based on victory points, and of course the player with the most victory points will win at the end. But what I'm trying to say is that for the most part, you don't want the victory point lead early on. You would like to stay behind on the victory points and get some rewards for that, which is, for example, exchanging some cards with the discard pile, and then play for the late game. I think New Cold War as a game pretty much forgives or rewards this play style, because, for example, in Twilight Struggle, we've got the automatic victory point win, which is if one of the two players reaches 20 victory points, the game is finished. There is no such thing in New Cold War. You can let the other players go ahead, as much ahead as they want, and hope to catch up to them later on. While, of course, there is the objective victory. If you let them fulfill 2 objectives, like dominating 2 regions, for example, then there may be a sudden victory, but this is pretty much controllable. So what is your opinion? Do you agree that it is, for the most part, the best to stay behind early, get the rewards from the discard pile, and then catching up to the rest of the players?
Yeah, I think this is not a bad strategy, because if, like we have told, it's a game of 4 players. If you are winning at the earliest stage of the game, all the players, or they are going to try to fight against you if you are very high in the victory point track. So yeah, it's not a bad strategy to be in a more soft position, not highlighting very much. Yeah, but for example, this is complicated for the blue block in the first decade. The blue block will start, especially the US, the game with a high points, and the red block with a lower points. So blue block is complicated for them to not be in this position. But yeah, I think it's important, but we don't have to forget that the objectives is the other way of winning the game. So we have each power has a deck of 8 different objectives, and in one game you play with 3 of them, and you win when you fulfill 2. So this provides different games, different interest for the powers in every game. And when a player fulfills one objective, all of the others will watch this player. But it's dangerous because sometimes these second objectives could arrive and the power can win with automatic victory. So I think in this game, there are several strategies because you can play to win by points, trying to avoid the objectives of your rivals. Or another good, in my case, I try to play to both options. So to be there on points and to try to do objectives. Or other players, for example, one thing that is important for Red Block is the prestige. For example, if you don't spend points in increase the prestige, you have like negative points and negative impacts during 3 turns of the 9 turns of the game. So some players forget about the prestige and got lower points, but they try to win with only with the 2 objectives. So you have like a big chance to select your strategy.
Yeah, and to make clear again, there are 2 ways for the game to end. One is that some player fulfills 2 of their secret objectives, for example, dominating 2 regions or the means of communication, for example, much like what is Europe control for Twilight Struggle, which guarantees an automatic victory. But in New Cold War, this is modular, like every game has different hidden objectives. Otherwise, we are going for the end game scoring, which is the player with the most victory points wins. So this provides some flexibility, of course, as Andoni said. Okay, one big part of Twilight Struggle that I like is that I can hold a card in my hand, like I can maintain a card in my hand purposely so that it is not reshuffled in the deck. There is always one card remaining in my hand, which I keep with the sole purpose of not letting it see the light of day and the other players gaining access to it. In New Cold War, there is something similar. You keep a card in your hand, but you discard it after the turn is completed. So any thoughts of maybe making it a bit more similar to Twilight Struggle, like holding it instead of discarding it so that you deny access to the other players by reclaiming it from the discard pile, for example? How do you think about it?
Yeah, we like the idea of having one more card on hand. You have only 4 cards in a turn and you play 3. But the discard of this card is not removed from the game. He goes to, like Giorgio said, he goes to a discard pile, and at the beginning of turns 3, 6, and 9, the powers that are losing the game, they can change 1 or 2 cards, it depends of the decade, from his hand with the discard pile. So I think this is an interest mechanism of, you discard 1 card, but he can re-enter again in the game by other power taking this card. So yeah, you have some strategy here because you have to decide to discard your worst card or maybe the best card of the other power, because if you play the card, the event will be triggered. So yeah, there is some strategy here and we like it.
I see, and that's the reason I like being behind on victory points every single game, so that I can reclaim the cards from the discard pile, as I said earlier. So another question is, how possible is it to play the game by focusing on messing up other players' plans instead of focusing on your own? I mean, it is early in the game. I am China, let's say, or Russia, I don't know, and I can't really, or don't want to really play around my game plan so early, and my focus is on keeping the other players behind. I don't want to dominate a region, for example, but I see that America is playing for Central America, for example, and Europe is playing for Africa, for example, and I spend my operation points on placing some influence in Africa and some influence in Central America, so as to mess up both the other players and play for my game plan later on. So how possible is it to be this kind of jerk player that I am by trying to mess up the others instead of focusing on your own plan in New Cold War?
Okay. Here, I think we have to explain that there is a big difference in playing with US or Russia, because you have access to all the map since the beginning of the game, or play with Europe or Asia, that he can only enter in 2 regions at the beginning and need some events to open the other regions. So I think there is some asymmetric difference here, important in the strategy of you can have. In my case, for example, when we test the game and for example with US players that try to control all the map, I think this is a risk strategy, because I think in this game it's better at least to control one region at the first score phase, because if not, you are starting to be, with lower points. So I think it is good to control at least one region. Maybe you have to control one region not related with your objectives. So maybe you are bluffing and making to the other players think that you have a big interest in South America, for example, but you only are taking the points. And after that, like you say, you go for your objectives later. So I think this is interest to don't show your objectives since the beginning, and for example, take a region only for the point purpose. So I think we are happy with the game because there are a lot of possibilities, lot of strategies. You can play, we have talked about this, 2 points, 2 objectives, to go with a lower score, to take the discard cards from the pile. You can play to, for example, other options. There are sub-regions. In each region, there are little geographical areas that you can score if you control all these countries. So this is another good strategy to control a region starting by the sub-regions, because you are making like a double reward, because you gain the sub-region and the final you gain the region. So it's a lot of possibilities. Another dichotomy here is play to your strategy or play more focus in the other player's strategy. So when you are playing and you are the 4th player in points, you are losing, for example, we always try to do your own strategy because all the players will allow you. But when you are playing and you are the 2nd, the 3rd, the 1, it's complicated to play only on your side. So we have a lot of possibilities.
I see. So I have to clarify again, as Andoni very accurately pointed out, that there are some powers like China, for example, who have access to certain regions, at least during the beginning of the game, during the early stages. China is more focused on gaining dominance on Asia and Southeast Asia, of course, and Europe is more focused on gaining some influence in Europe and Africa, which is their sphere of influence. And later on in the game, you can possibly gain access to the rest of the regions on the map. So definitely some asymmetry here among the powers. But it's nice that you can have all these different strategies of trying to mess up your opponents or play for regions irrelevant to your objectives early on so that you bluff and then go for your real objectives. And I think this is all the spice we can expect from the game like this. Makes the game really spicy, and I like it. I'm sure you will like it. So last question about the game's mechanics. How do you handle these annoying crisis cards? I mean, crisis cards are much like scoring cards in Twilight Struggle. This is a painful card. You can draw it and then you have to play it no matter what, and possibly you have to play it without any rewards, without any operation points, just to lose some victory points in many cases. The difference is that in Twilight Struggle there are some cheap tricks you can do to discard the scoring cards. For example, I mean, experienced Twilight Struggle player will know about, for example, 5-year plan or Kennedy. Ask not what your country can do for you. These are some cheap tricks to get rid of the scoring cards. There's no such thing in New Cold War. You draw the crisis cards and you have to play them with negative impacts to your side, oftentimes. So how would you recommend the players handle the crisis cards? Some cheap tricks, 1 or 2, for example.
In this case, there is not I think not a lot of options to deal with this, but the worst case is that you have to play your own crisis card, because you are not playing the points and you are triggering a very harmful events against your power. So this is the worst, but it's complicated to avoid this. There is only one card in the game, that is the cybernetic warfare, that you can exchange all the hands of your cards with another player. So this is, I think, the only way to avoid to play a crisis card. In the other case, for example, a lot of people, when play a crisis card of the rival, it's like, oh, I'm not playing points. This is not good, 0 points. But if you see the event of the other player, the negative for the other player, because this is one difference from Twilight Struggle, that we have negative cards here.
Yes, sir.
The crisis and the negative cards, okay? So this negative event for the other power is very, very powerful. So maybe you are telling that I'm not playing 1 point, but you are making a very powerful play against the other player of maybe 5 or 6 points. So in my case, I prefer always to play first this card.
Yes.
To after that have the possibility with the 2 cards of revert a little bit the situation. But in this case, for example, like you have told, we have no dice. So other people say that here the lack of the game is the cards. But I'm not sure about this, because, for example, you can have one hand of 3 cards with 1 point each, for example, and you say, I have a very bad hand. It's true. But if you are playing, for example, with European Union, and the other players play Merkel, the enlargement of the European Union and the introduction of the euro, like are 3 events of 3 points, this turn will not a bad turn for you. So I think in this game, the events played for other players finally balance a little bit this lack, because you can have a bad hand, but if the other events are good for you, maybe this round or this turn will not bad for you at the end. So
So what Andoni is trying to say is that much like Twilight Struggle, oftentimes you feel you have a terrible hand, but this is because the opponent also has a terrible hand because he has to play cards to benefit you. This is the case in the New Cold War as well. So yeah, even in the worst rounds where you have bad cards that provide benefits to your opponents or are low on operations value, you can tell that by remembering which cards there are in the deck that your opponent is also facing similar problems. Maybe he's got high operation cards, but these will provide benefits to you. And there is a very smart mechanism in New Cold War with negative cards and positive cards and the war cards, for example, that the better the card is for you, the less operations it provides, or vice versa. If this is a negative card for your opponent, again, it provides less operations for you. And this is really smart, and we like it. So, summing up, one last question is, what would be your ideas about future releases, except for possible expansions to New Cold War, or possibly other game designs unrelated to New Cold War? What are your future plans for the near future?
We have the idea of maybe continuing with this base game, okay, and create a new game, but with this like it's making, for example, with another VUCA designer like Yves Rettel on Red Strike, that they are maintaining the same game, like a series. I think they call a series of a game, or maintaining the same base rules to create a new game in a different scenario, or So this is our one idea. For example, we are thinking in make something with Africa. With a game based in Africa, but it's only a early idea right now, because we have final with the New Cold War like 2-3 weeks ago, after a long work with the rule book, with all the files, and now we are focusing in making some some publicity, marketing, creating videos for the BGG. We are posting information. We want to create solitaire videos to people can see us playing. So we are focusing this, but this is one idea, because we think that Africa, there is not a lot of games with Africa and with the geopolitical struggle that we have together, because right now in Africa you can see all these four powers struggling hard there with Russia with Wagner, China with the investments, and we want maybe to include some difference with New Cold War to be focused a little bit more in terms of resources in Africa, like resources or the control of the communication ports, roads, gasoducts, or this is one idea. But I think if China was difficult to investigate the events, maybe for Africa will be more complicated. But we are, interested in know this world. Maybe this is the idea, because making a new game for the moment is complicated, because we are very, very related with our game. We can separate right now from him. After all these years, maybe in the future we can start to think in other designs. Or
I say, look, this is a very good chance for you to relax a bit and recollect and reconsider on your design, and possibly have a break before designing the next one. But one good thing is that after designing this one and establishing a successful game system like the New Cold War one, you can keep some things from this system and apply it to other designs. That's what many designers have been doing. and establishing some real series of games and continuing the series, successful series. And this is maybe the time I would say you can play, a lot more different games and try a lot of different systems. And I'm pretty sure this will positively impact your next designs. You can find some really beautiful mechanisms in other games and systems. And I'm really interested in what you just said about Africa, because I think this is a design you have to make over the next years or so. But you don't have to be in some rush about it. You can take it slow and complete it after a few years, because first of all, the updates are live and ongoing, and much stuff might have been changed over the next years. And of course, you need a lot of study to do.
Yeah.
But it definitely is a very interesting topic. Africa as a region is rich in resources and rich in struggles, of course, and political influence from various superpowers. We are all watching the news around Africa these years. Things are ever changing. And I would wish you good luck if you start and complete this project. As for New Cold War, of course, this is the time to focus on marketing and instructive material on YouTube and social media about how to play the game and the examples of play and the solitaire or multiplayer. And of course, I will always be there for you if you want me to join some session on YouTube or other means, or tabletop simulator, and show players around the world how approachable this game is. One big thing about games like Cold War is like it is right around the edge of wargaming and Eurogaming and casual gaming, because there is this wargaming approach, but this is not so tough or hard to master. If you are taught by the right group of people, it might look really approachable and friendly a game. So I hope together we can draw a lot of people to playing New Cold War. It's a very interesting and fun game, and I'm pretty sure many different groups of gamers will love it. So looking forward to join with you any session, anytime soon. So if there is nothing more to add at this point, I would like to thank you once more for joining us today. Looking forward to meeting Igor Platha as well for some session anytime soon. Good luck with this much expected game early in 2025. I hope earliest as possible. People can pre-order it from VUCA Simulations. I will try not to forget to post the link in the description. Wish you a big success, and greetings from our sunny Greece. Hope I can meet you in Pamplona or Vitoria in this year. And hasta luego.
Okay, many thanks for letting us participate. We are happy to talk about Little Sun, the New Cold War. So thanks, Georgios. And we have one game to finish. Very interesting game. Very okay, and we will finish in the next days. Okay.
Sure.
So thanks, Georgios.
Thanks, Andoni. See you soon. Hasta luego. Bye bye.